Jacob, who is your dark horse for week 1 of the 2022 season?
Okay, so for week 1. So my dark horse for week 1 is a guy we already talked about earlier in the podcast, and that is Rhamondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots. New England Patriots. This is another guy. Honestly, if I didn't choose AJ Dillon as my knight in shining armor, I would have chose Rhamondre Stevenson. So you weren't far off, Gabe. But I just think they're playing Miami. Look, regardless of matchup, I think Rhamondre is going to be a huge part of that offense this year. I'm not saying he's going to, supplant Damian Harris as the guy who gets the most carries on the team or the guy who gets the most red zone carries on the team, but I just think he's going to be very active. He had limited pass game work last year, but I think he was very efficient in that pass game work. Also, some of this stuff for me comes down to the eye test, and I watched Rhamondre Stevenson play a lot last year, and the man runs so hard, and he plays every down with as much effort as he possibly can, and he's extremely talented. So I just think, based on the way their team's set up, I think they're going to use the running backs a lot. This is another example. This is exactly what I'm talking about earlier when I'm talking about backfields where there's two guys who are both going to be very, very fantasy relevant. And I think that's going to be the New England Patriots. Now, you might be debating between Rhamondre and another flex you have. And typically, look, if you have a solid wide receiver, like you're thinking Jerry Jeudy or Rhamondre Stevenson, okay, maybe go Jerry Jeudy because, wide receivers get fantasy points a lot easier unless the running backs get touchdowns. But I just think, there's a lot of leagues where I'm deciding between Rhamondre and another guy. There's one league where I'm starting Rhamondre in my RB2 spot because I basically went very wide receiver heavy in that draft. So I'm relying on Rhamondre Stevenson this week. They're playing, like I said, they're playing Miami. So, Miami has a new coaching staff. Like, who knows how that game's going to go? Bill Belichick is usually pretty good against Miami. So I just think Rhamondre is going to get a lot of work. He plays hard. I don't think the game's going to be a blowout. That's just either way. So I think he's going to be involved. So fire him up, Rhamondre Stevenson for week 1.
I love the pick, man. A lot of people are going crazy right now talking about how the Patriots offense in the preseason hasn't looked good. Mac Jones doesn't get the playbook. The new schemes they're trying to run, whatever it may be. Bill Belichick, you don't question the Patriots. They figure it out. They're always relevant. And with relevancy, typically comes fantasy relevant. However, most of the times, most Patriots aren't fantasy relevant. And it's been the running back core for a long time. However, I think the tides are changing in New England. I love Damian Harris. I love Rhamondre Stevenson. James White retired. He's no longer in the picture. Looks like Rhamondre Stevenson is at the helm to get the passing down games work, even behind a guy like Ty Montgomery, who I think is just kind of there as a placeholder. I think Rhamondre Stevenson has the juice. He's a bully with finesse is how I kind of like to describe him. And you described him perfectly as well. Just a guy that just gets the job done. So solid pick. I'm right there with you. We need to look up his sleeper projections.
Oh, I have it. It's 10.85.
Oh my gosh.
10.85? I don't know.
Come on, man. Let's go to 15. Bump it up, baby.
15 is a lot, man.
It's a touchdown and 80 yards.
That's a lot.
80 yards and a touchdown?
But I feel like 10.8 is a lot. Or 10.8 is not a lot. How about we call them both an even 13?
This guy hedging bets on his own dark horse. I like it. For the sake of argument, let's do it. And for the sake of time, let's move on because